One man. Goodbye. Hello, Heisman.
20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50, 45. There goes Davis. Oh, my God. Davis is going to run it all the way back. Auburn's going to win the football game.
They give it back now to the 30. They're down to the 20. All the band is out on the field. He's going to go into the end zone.
Four-man Alabama rush. Got him. Oh, no, they didn't. Oh, my gracious.
Yep.
How about that?
Welcome in, one and all, to another edition of the Three Technique, the college football podcast at the intersection of the X's and O's and the Jimmies and Joes. Trey Reeves and Garrett Turney here with you, recording on this lovely Monday evening. We're both wearing black tonight, Garrett. I don't know. Did I miss something? Like, we are just both in our feels, I guess, in the deep doldrums of the off season. What happened here?
Mourning the loss of like sports fandom right now. You know, our Rangers aren't doing so good right now. It's looking like a long off season incoming without all that baseball passion that we're used to. So I don't know, just maybe a little bit of that subconscious. I will say mine has a little bit of Dallas Stars love.
Okay.
So, you know, I gotta kind of balance it out a little bit. It is a little bit of Stars love. So, you know, maybe at some point we'll, you know, push through and the Stars will win this against the Avs and they'll figure it out. But if not, if the Stars can't figure it out and go on a little bit of a run, it's going to be a desperately long off season for your boy over here in the Turney residence.
We said it all off season. Check on your Dallas friends if you haven't already. If you haven't heard from them in a while, you might really want to get
Especially after that draft, man. Jerry, good night, dude.
Well, yeah, we can talk about the draft here just a little bit as we start this one off. But, yeah, not a great spring so far for the Metroplex Sports. Big Game 5 at the AAC tonight as we're recording this on Monday. So hopefully the Stars can turn those fortunes around just a little bit. Garrett, we are brought to you, as always, by Home Field Apparel. We want to make sure that everybody remembers to check out our friends over there at Home Field Apparel, bringing you all the latest and greatest retro gear for all of your favorite teams across college football. I mentioned it the last episode. If you haven't gotten to check out their ballpark editions, their ballpark collection, man, those baseball-inspired jerseys and pullovers and hats from the 70s and 80s, fantastic, really draining my bank account. But they don't have to drain your bank account if you use our code 3TechPod for your discount, your 15% discount on your first order. Make sure you're checking them out. Make sure that you are equipping yourself for those spring diamond sports to hold you over to the through at least part of this long, dark off season for college football. Garrett, it's an April show, and we've been doing this. We haven't been doing this forever, as long as some of our colleagues in this industry have been doing it, but we've been doing it long enough to know that sometimes, most years, the numbers are dipping around this time. But we did have the NFL draft this past week, and we didn't go as hard in the paint in draft coverage this year. We made some internal programming decisions to kind of reprioritize our energies there around this time of year. But I know you were watching. I know that you were keeping a close eye on it. What caught your eye this past weekend up in Green Bay?
Man, let me tell you, first off, don't know why you would pick a place like Green Bay at this point in the year. It didn't look like the best time. I'm sure the Green Bay people are like, it's not that cold. But a lot of the fans of the other teams that aren't from Green Bay didn't look like they were having a very fun time.
The Green Bay fans were in like shorts and T-shirts.
Dude. Oh, yeah, Green Bay fans were excited for a mild spring. But it looked like most of the other people were bundled up. And did you see the Schefter outfit that he was wearing with like the hoodie over the tie but under the sport coat?
Yeah, the layering didn't really work on that. He forgot to
atrocious choice.
He forgot to reorganize the layers in his panel over there on the right side of Photoshop.
Whoever his stylist was is getting fired. But you didn't come here for the stylist news. You came here for the football. A couple things that I wanted to kind of talk about, Trey, just with regards to the draft, because obviously this is kind of our last little send-off goodbye to our players that we've been watching the last couple years and talking about the last couple years. And, it's a nice moment for us to kind of talk about them at the end. Want to bring up a couple people, just kind of get a little bit of thoughts on them. Number one, we're going to start at number 1 with Cam Ward. Just a really cool story, starting off at Incarnate Word, working his way up, using the transfer portal the right way, and building himself from a guy with like no real offers, like not really a lot of attention coming out of high school, into the number 1 overall pick. We've seen a lot of, I'm sure if you're online like I am, you've seen a lot of the videos about him, kind of getting emotional draft night, and some of his videos about just being all about ball. Just a really great work ethic from him. Really cool guy. Love the story for him. I know that you and Mitch were real big on him these last couple.
We were, yeah. Just gonna do our victory lap for
Yeah.
Mitch real quick. We were in on that kid while he was at Incarnate Word, and just seeing the highlights on Twitter and seeing him go to Washington State and then on to Miami was just really, really cool. We were a year too early on this podcast for him to really break out at Wazoo. He had a nice first season there, but then totally broke out his second year at Washington State, and then of course had the Heisman caliber year at Miami, I'll say, this year. So really cool to see a player that we followed literally from next to nothing at Incarnate Word, getting that done and being the first overall pick. And I will say, Gary, you had to be online to get that coverage of Cam Ward, it felt like, because I didn't get to watch a ton of draft this weekend, but it seemed like he was like the least covered number 1 pick of all time.
They did not talk about him because of the Shadur drama. And that's honestly like a shame on ESPN, because this is a guy that's easy to root for. This is a guy with an awesome story. And that's not to take anything away from Shadur. It's just that Cam was the number 1 pick for a reason. Like, he's a really good quarterback. Y'all weren't really even early. Y'all just believed. Like, I'm just thinking, the whole lasso belief thing. Like, that's just where y'all were on Cam Ward, and I think that's really, really cool. Another guy that I think we all believed in, and I think we all believe in at the next level, is going to be Harold Fannin Jr., best tight end in college football for my money last year. There were 5 mistakes made when teams were drafting tight ends, and then Harold Fannin was drafted.
He was the tight end 6?
He was the 6th tight end taken.
Wow.
Preston Loveland was the first off the board to the Bears.
I saw that, and I was surprised that it wasn't.
Yeah,
it wasn't.
He went to the Colts a couple picks later.
Surprised it wasn't Warren. Yeah.
Mason Taylor and Terrence Ferguson out of LSU and Oregon were the next couple in the second round. Then you had Elijah Arroyo as well from Miami in that second round. And then Harold Fannin gets drafted. And I got to tell you what, man, there's going to be a lot of people that are really sad that Harold Fannin does not play for their team. And for all of the conversation that goes on around, I'm going to make these other teams pay. These other teams are going to regret not drafting me, which is what I'm sure everybody says that doesn't get picked in the first round. That's probably going to end up being true for Harold Fannin Jr. He's an absolute stud. One thing I also wanted to bring up, a couple positional sort of notes. Running backs seem to be undervalued, like at an all-time level. I know that it's not like a high draft stock pick. Like, and not a lot of people really put a lot of stock in the running back position.
Unless you're Ashton Genty.
Unless you're Ashton Genty, which is deserved so. I mean, he went number 6 overall. I'm really excited for him to kind of take that. Hopefully we see him on everybody's, first 3 picks in their fantasy drafts coming up in the next couple of years, because it'd be really fun to watch him ball out in Vegas. But there were so many guys that got drafted day 3 that I think are going to end up being massive contributors. Guys that ended up being huge players on their own respective teams. Guys like Cam Scatterboot, Trevor Etienne, Jarquez Hunter at Auburn was a huge one. Dylan Sampson at Tennessee. Jordan James from Oregon. Jaden Blue from Texas. Ollie Gordon, I know he didn't have the best year last year, but an absolute stud the year before. You get guys like Taj Brooks out of Texas Tech. Damian Martinez transferred to Miami. He ends up going in the 7th round. Kyle Monangai from Rutgers. You have Phil Maffa from Clemson. All day 3 guys. I know that the running back position, again, it's not like everyone's favorite one to pick, and running backs get chewed up and spat out, but it's hard to think that at least half of those guys aren't going to factor in for their squad at some point over the next couple of years in a really meaningful way. A couple of those guys could end up being like long-time NFL starters.
Yeah, it never ceases to amaze me. The guys that we just follow and love that are such key integral pieces of really good teams. You mentioned guys that were, Cam Scatterboot literally leading Arizona State to a Big 12 title and a college football playoff appearance this year. So, it never ceases to amaze me. Some of these guys that just drop all the way to the end of the draft in day 3. And we watched him for 3 or 4 years just dominate the college level. And you know that it's in there. So you know that a couple of those guys, probably not all of them, just because of the way the NFL is, the guys are not loyal to those picks for very long, unfortunately, that are way down in those later rounds. But you know a few of those are going to hit. And you mentioned fantasy earlier. If you pick one of those guys in a rookie draft in like the 3rd or 4th round and it hits, and that's just absolute gold.
Yeah. Well, and another thing, too, the running game has been diminished in terms of just the way that people value it. But go look at your Super Bowl champs and ask yourself why they ended up winning the Super Bowl this last year. Like, what was the difference that got them over the top? Defense is a big piece in that, but running the football is a massive piece as well. And being able to get a good run game going on the ground, having a reliable elite running back really opened things up for the Eagles. So I just think that's the thing that is being undervalued right now in football. And the last thing I wanted to talk about from this draft, Trey, the quarterback situation this year was very bizarre. I know it's not an overly deep quarterback year. I know that there weren't really like 5 or 6 guys that were guaranteed first round picks, but a very weird situation. After Cam Ward, obviously, Jackson Dart goes first round. Tyler Shuck's the next guy off the list. Jalen Milrose, the next guy off the list. Couple guys that maybe I wouldn't have picked in that order if I were those teams. Obviously, the Shadur Sanders stuff is going to get most of the headlines, and if you've been on Twitter in the last week, you've been probably somewhat like us, having fun dunking on him a little bit. But aside from just dunking on Shadur, it shocked me how many guys ended up going day 3 and even later. Kyle McCord goes day 3 after his explosion year at Syracuse. Will Howard wins a national championship with Ohio State and goes the 9th pick in the 6th round. Riley Leonard was the next guy. I know he didn't necessarily project out as well, maybe a little bit less than the arm talent, but another 6th round pick. And then Curtis Rourke and Quinn Ewers are the last 2 guys picked. They're in the 7th round. But Trey, before either of them got picked, Graham Mertz from Florida went off the board to the Houston Texans. Just a very confusing, to me, quarterback draft. I don't know what these guys are looking at when they're evaluating quarterback talent, but I might have restructured that board a little bit differently if I was one of the scouts that are making my quarterback board.
Hey, careful, Mel Kiper. Careful, Mel Kiper.
Okay.
You're dangerously close to saying they don't know what they're doing. Anything? No, I'm just kidding. Those late round picks.
Career on like Brady Quinn or something. Okay, I'm not going to do that.
Every single year, those late picks are so fascinating because they are 6th or 7th round picks. They're not the most valuable picks, obviously. They're traded like candy and thrown into deals all the time just to even it out on the trade calculator, whatever they're working with. But it truly is just whatever that particular GM or that franchise or that coaching staff feels like they can work with. They're trying to find a tool at that point. So, yeah, I was really surprised that some of the guys that went before Quinn Ewers, you mentioned it, Shadur Sanders obviously stealing all the headlines. We made our joke at his expense. I should say Mitch did, that he had a fire tweet that was probably our best of all time on our Twitter account at 3TechPod. But, yeah, it really is fascinating every single year to see guys. I mean, just a couple years ago, right? Brock Purdy falls to the 7th round. He's Mr. Irrelevant, right? And leads his team to the Super Bowl eventually because there are guys that can play at all rounds and in the undrafted free agent class. So always love seeing where our guys that we covered ended up. If you have draft thoughts, we'd love to hear them. Make sure you're following along at 3TechPod on Instagram and Twitter. Subscribe to the YouTube channel as well. Drop some comments below about your favorite draft moments, your favorite draft picks, draft grades, anything draft. We'd love to hear about it. But Garrett, this is not a full draft episode. This is our first QB rankings episode of the 2025 offseason. This is a really popular series because it makes a lot of people really happy when they see their guys in the right spots, according to them, and it pisses a lot of people off when they feel like their guys are getting shafted in our rankings, for whatever that means. We just joked about NFL GMs not knowing what they're looking for in quarterbacks. We are proverbial couch bros, but we're just going to call it like we see it. As always, this is kind of a combination of stuff we've seen on the field plus trying to project a little bit because, of course, with the transfer portal, with sometimes freshmen and younger guys not seeing a ton of time or not being a full-time starter. We're trying to project and balance the talent that we know that they have with just maybe some more proven things on the field for guys that we're currently ranking ahead of them. Not where we're projecting to end it at the end of the season, but this is where we see it right now. So today we're going through all those caveats out of the way. We're going to go through the SEC and the ACC. And speaking of pissing some fan bases off, Garrett, you ready to piss one off right off the bat?
Here we go.
Here we go. Number 5. We're going to go through the top 5 of the SEC and the ACC, starting with the Southeastern Conference. Number 5, Arch Manning of Texas. Yeah, got it. That sound you hear is the entire city of Austin just lighting pitchforks and coming towards us at the same time. But Arch Manning's going to check in at number 5. Garrett, again, Captain Caveat. That'll be my nickname here for this part of it. Obviously, he very well could and probably will be the number 1 at the end of the year. And he filled in very, very well for Quinn last year. Threw for 9 touchdowns on the season. 5 of those 9, I will say, came against Colorado State and UTSA when he was doing mop-up duty in the second half early on. But he obviously has a lot of tools. We saw his legs more than we really expected to last year. He came in situationally throughout the entire season, throughout the SEC schedule, and really put some defenses on their heels with what he was able to do on the ground. Really excited to see what Sark can do with that combination and kind of the dual threat aspect of him. But he's at 5, and he's not at number 1 preseason because we haven't seen him be the permanent guy. Right? I think a lot of people, if they're honest, probably expected once Quinn got hurt last year that Arch was just going to take that job and run with it. And I think a lot of the Texas fan base did. But there's a reason that I think Sark ran with Quinn Ewers the rest of the year. And it wasn't because Arch Manning would have won them a national championship last year. I legitimately think if Arch was better, Steve Sarkisian and company would have played him over Quinn Ewers, especially after that injury. Kind of derailed Quinn's season last year. But he finally gets to be the guy. It's much anticipated. Day 1 starter. How are we expecting? What are our expectations? What are your expectations, I should say, for Arch Manning this year?
Yeah, for me, the speculation on Arch entirely has to do with the fact that we don't know what it's going to look like when teams plan for Arch Manning, right? When you are lining up against the Texas Longhorns the last couple of years and you're planning for Quinn Ewers, you have zero expectation that this guy's going to take off and run, right? And I think Arch kind of took advantage of that towards the beginning of the year with a couple of those teams, that maybe didn't expect him to take off and run as much as he did. And his legs kind of kept him off balance and made him kind of think about stuff. And, you get a defense on its heels, it makes it a little bit easier to do what you need to do. I think that his legs are a great benefit for him. I think that he's a good runner. Maybe a little concerned about durability. I always get concerned about that with running quarterbacks. If you're going to be doing that much running of the football, got to wonder about, okay, well, what happens when you take that hot shot, especially with teams that are going to be playing, Texas will be the big team on a lot of people's schedule. You're going to get some safeties that are going to want to do a little bit of dirty work, and that just comes with the territory, right? So I wonder a little bit about the durability. He hasn't shown us anything so far that says he's injury prone, but, anything could happen. And yeah, just when when other teams are planning for him, what does he look like? He, for example, didn't look all that good in his brief moment against Georgia. I know that was, again, very brief and a little bit of a maybe just get Quinn's attention. And you never want to get thrown in against a team like the Georgia Bulldogs. I don't care if you're at home. But there are still moments where he didn't look all world and elite last season. That's not to take anything away from him. He's a very good quarterback, and he played really well in his moments that he got a chance. For me, the entire thing about Arch is just understanding he's a really talented quarterback, but the grind of the SEC is one big thing, and being able to go through a whole season, have a bad game, bounce back. I mean, ask Quinn Ewers. He was the other perfect rated quarterback that Texas took, right? Both of them perfect rated coming out of high school. Quinn Ewers had his moments, right? He had his moments where he had a bad game, and he had to strap the chin strap back on and get back out there next week and learn from it in practice. And there will be, I'm sure, at some point next season, whether they win or lose the game, Arch is going to have a bad game. how he bounces back. All those things are things that we just haven't seen him have to do yet. And that's why we have preseason rankings, is because these preseason quarterback rankings are telling us that, hey, we think he's probably going to get all this done. We think he's probably going to be really good. And he's probably going to go out and throw for, a whole bunch of yards. He's probably going to add that dual threat. He's probably going to do all this, but we just don't know. And it wouldn't be fair at this point to rank him higher than other guys that are at the moment more proven commodities.
The odds that he finishes top 3 in the SEC, I'm not even going to go top 1, but top 3, probably 85 to 90%. And that might be lowballing it just a little bit. So go back and listen to what Garrett just said again, guys, before you come at us with your pitchforks and just write a bunch of comments. We got to see it. We want to see it for a whole season. It's a grind. And guys make mistakes when they are going through that SEC grind for the first time. Love that you brought up the Georgia reference, because he's gonna face that and face a couple difficult road venues that he didn't have to face last year too. So really excited to see what he can finally do. Really excited to see if that takes the Texas offense to a new level that we haven't seen with Quinn Ewers at the helm, or just what wrinkles Steve Sarkisian can insert now that Arch is going to be running the show. Garrett, number 4. This is a guy that we were probably out on midway through last year. Probably expected his team to be shopping in the portal around late September, early October. But the close to last season made him vault up this list and got a lot of people really excited. He's getting some low-key Heisman hype in this offseason. I'm talking about Lenoris Sellers at South Carolina. Here's the insane close that he had last year, Garrett. South Carolina closed the regular season on a 6-game win streak. They were sitting at 3-3. Reeled off 6 straight wins to close the regular season. During that win streak, Sellers had a 67% completion percentage, 246.8 yards per game, 13-3 touchdown to interception ratio, and had 4 extra touchdowns on the ground. He also had a couple of 100-yard rushing games. Ran for 106 against A&M and 166 on the road in Death Valley to close out the regular season against Clemson. He really improved as a passer down the stretch, because as we were watching him in September and early October, it was a rough watch at times, trying to see him connect with some really talented receivers that South Carolina had, but he really improved his craft as a passer down the stretch. But it has to be his legs that make him dynamic and really vault him up this list.
Yeah, Trey, call it baptism by fire, whatever it was. I remember us talking about him last year coming out of camp, and we were talking about South Carolina in our previews and saying, hey, looks like they're going to put their faith in this kid, Lenoris Sellers, and that's a strategy, right? We were, kind of talking, Shane Beamer, a little bit hot seat talk, maybe possibly not in the great spot. And it looked for a little bit like we were going to be vindicated on that take, and that, Lenoris Sellers, for all that he was on the ground, he just wasn't as a passer for the beginning part of the year. Well, that turned around real quick, like you were just talking about. Like he turned it around. He really started to develop. And I think it's just, at a certain point, it's baptism by fire, right? It's just throw the kid in there, let him get chewed up a little bit by the SEC. And at one of those points in the season, he's going to turn it around. And that was against an A&M team that, the secondary wasn't really all that good. He had some open receivers he maybe wasn't used to for the rest of that season. And he got some opportunities to really, kind of work on what he needed to. And get a little bit of momentum, right? And he turned that around. He kept doing that against, Vanderbilt, and had a great game against Missouri with 353 with 5 touchdowns. That was amazing. He just really turned it around and found his footing, I think. So I think for me, the big question for Lenoris Sellers is, okay, you showed us that there's moments, right? But then also, you end the season against Illinois, you kind of get embarrassed, a little bit shut down. Like, who are you, right? Who is Lenoris Sellers? Is he the guy that can go out there and really lead this team? Is he the guy that maybe with, a couple fewer, weapons? I know that, Rocket Sanders, is Rocket Sanders back? I can't remember if he's back this year or not. But if I can't imagine he is. If he is, then,
yeah, I have to look that up. You can keep talking. I'll look it up.
Yeah, but regardless, he's at some point in time during his career going to be without Rocket Sanders. At some point in time during his career, he's going to have to kind of take on the mantle of being the guy, right? He's going to have to be the feature point of the offense. when he's that guy, when he becomes that guy, when it's time for us to put all those expectations on him, when other teams again are prepping for him to be that guy, taking him seriously, working on that physical tackling all week and the practice leading up to it, like when we get to that point, I wonder how he responds to that, right? That's why a lot of people talk about sophomore slumps, is they think that people just get worse. Well, what it really is teams just start to take you seriously. And Lenora Sellers is a guy I am sure that every SEC coach on this schedule is circling and saying, all right, we're going to spend like a whole day in fall camp talking about how to take down this guy because he's got, shades of Cam Newton or whatever else. He's starting to look real good. So, look, I like the kid. I think he's really talented. I don't know what his ceiling is, but I sure know that he's got a lot of talent. He's got a lot of physical athleticism, and he's going to be able to do a lot of good things there for South Carolina.
Rocket Sanders signed an undrafted free agent deal with the Los Angeles Chargers this past weekend, so good for him. Yeah, I'm right there with you. He's untackleable at times, and Cam Newton is a fantastic comparison. I think he might be a better passer than Cam Newton, though.
Maybe.
As scary as that is, I don't think we've seen his ceiling as a passer just yet, and that's really scary when you think about what we saw on the field down the stretch last year. It was really, really good, high completion percentage, and something that, you're right, is keeping SEC defensive coordinators up at night, trying to think about how they're going to scheme around this guy. Because as we saw with our team, if you have the perfect scheme and you're in his backfield, it doesn't guarantee that you're going to bring him down.
Mm-hmm.
And he might just rumble on for 20 yards.
Sometimes
after you have
free rushers don't work against Lenora Sellers.
And that is very, very hard to scheme against, no matter how good of a defensive staff that you are. All right, let's move on to number 3, Garrett. We are going to talk about another Garrett Nussmeier at LSU. And it is the story with him, I think, last year was really the accuracy. In 8 of LSU's 9 wins, Nussmeier completed over 60%. In 3 of their 4 losses, he completed less than 65%. Interceptions were also a bit of an issue, especially in those losses. I'm thinking back to the second half in Kyle Field, right? Game completely flipped on its head. LSU dominating, Nussmeier throws a couple of interceptions, and all of a sudden A&M is walking out with a pretty convincing win at Kyle Field. But his highs are just as high as any other quarterback in this league. Some of the throws that he's able to make will make the NFL scouts drool when they are evaluating him for the draft process next year. A lot of people thought he might come out for the draft this year, but I think he made a good decision coming back to LSU. He's going to have offensive talent around him. Of course, we know that LSU is going to have dudes at those skill positions. It's really going to be just important for him to take care of the football and really hone in on that accuracy. The deep balls, there were some misses in games that cost the LSU offense. And I think if he's able to do that, he could very well see his name called in the first round next year of the NFL draft. Also, this kind of shocked me. I know we have him number 3, so maybe this shouldn't be too shocking, but current co-favorite to win the Heisman per FanDuel, plus 800, ironically with Arch, who we have at number 5. So Garrett Nussmeier, number 3, LSU quarterback. I've talked enough. What are your thoughts?
I think I've got maybe a little bit of a hot take. I don't know if it's that much of a hot take because obviously people really like Nussmeier. I think he's going to be really good this year. And I know it's an easy comparison because they went to the same school. He's got a little bit of Joe Burrow in there, I think. He's got a little bit of that, where that Joe Burrow 2018 season, he was really good, but he made a couple mistakes. He hadn't quite developed. He hadn't quite found his rhythm. And you could see that the talent was there. You could see that, hey, it's right there. He's going to frustrate people. And people expected him to be good in 2019, but people didn't expect him to be quite as good as he was. Now, don't hear what I'm, not saying. I'm not saying that LSU this season in 2025 is going to be LSU of 2019. It's not what I'm saying. I don't think it's the same team. I don't think the talent level is there across the board the same way. But it wouldn't shock me at all if you see Nussmeier take that big next step. Because looking at some of his numbers, he throws for over 4,000 yards, but that's with a 64% completion. That number could come up pretty easily. He finished the last 3 games of his season, Vanderbilt, Oklahoma, and Baylor. He cleared 70% completion.
The close was elite. He
closed really well. And He threw 12 picks last year. That number can come down as well. Just a little bit of work in your offseason, understanding your offense, understanding opposing defenses a little bit more. You can really grow in that. So I don't think he's the same caliber quarterback as Joe Burrow. I don't think he's got the same ceiling. I'm not saying LSU is going to win the title, okay? I know LSU fans are going to want to jump at that, and I know everybody else is going to want to jump down my throat on it. But I just think that this could be that kind of jump and transformation where, a couple weeks in, we're saying, okay, fine, Garrett Nussmeier is the best quarterback in college football. Let's just put that one to the side. Who else is number 2, right? I think we could be saying that about Nussmeier come, middle to late September of next season.
Man, I just remember watching him in that opening night or opening weekend game against USC and thinking, man, they replaced Jaden Daniels with another Heisman caliber quarterback because he was just making every single throw, had no time with his offensive line, but it didn't matter. And USC, of course, ended up winning that game because of LSU's defense and offensive line. But I just remember, it's in there. And if he can find that consistency, LSU is going to be in for something special.
6 games over 70% completions last season.
Yeah, and but the problem, those aren't the problem, right? And even the Ole Miss win, I think he was sub 50%, right? If you have his game log pulled up. Yeah, so even in some of the wins, we're talking about just really inconsistent. If he can find that consistent connection with his receivers, it's going to be trouble for the rest of the SEC. Got a couple more here in the Southeastern Conference before we move on to the ACC. I should have mentioned off the top, we made this ranking by all 3 of us ranked all 16 quarterbacks for the SEC. We ranked all 18, counting Notre Dame, for the ACC, and a fun little program spit out our composite rankings. So we all ranked all the quarterbacks, and this is what we got. Number 2, John Mateer, the transfer from Washington State, the new Oklahoma Sooner. The fact that I'm mentioning John Mateer, not even just at number 2, but in the top 5 of the SEC, Oklahoma fans that we made so angry last year have to be doing cartwheels, right? Because they were so excited about their quarterback situation last year. It just didn't work out no matter what they tried. And now they get the package deal. They get one of the youngest OCs in the game, 30-year-old Ben Arbuckle, bringing his quarterback, his gunslinger, John Mateer, down from the Palouse to Norman, Oklahoma. This is going to be a fun and gun offense, man. If you're not familiar with John Mateer's game, go turn on some tape, maybe from the Texas Tech game last year, maybe from the Washington game when they were taking on the Huskies last year. Some really fun highlights that you'll see of this kid leading a really fun offense at Washington State. I think it's going to translate to the SEC, and that's why he's all the way up here. I'll confess, in my personal rankings, he was number 1 because this is the best portal QB of this class for my money. I know there were some big names. We'll talk about Carson Beck later. Obviously, Nico will come up. DJU was talked about on this show multiple times in the last couple of years, but Nico will come up when we get to the Big Ten, I'm sure. But this was the best portal take for my money in the whole process. I love this pickup for Oklahoma. I love the fun and gun offense that he's going to bring with him with Ben Arbuckle. I think it's going to cause some problems, and I think Oklahoma has the potential to be one of the big bounce-back teams in all of college football this year because of it.
I guess you and Mitch must have both put him 1 because I was wondering how he got so high up this list.
Did you put him in your top 5?
I put him, I think, at 7 or 8.
Wow.
And it's not because
what are we missing then? What are we missing?
Okay, so here's my thing. I want to say a couple things first. I think John Mateer is a very good quarterback. I also think that my take could look super stupid come, middle of September. I could look like an idiot for not believing in John Mateer. I think he's an upgrade. I didn't put Jackson Arnold above him, so that's an upgrade. I think that he's going to be pretty good. Look, forgive me for not being crazy impressed with the competition level. That's just my only thing is, okay, he looked really good against competition level of, I guess he completed 85% against Hawaii. He threw for 390 against San Jose. He threw for 350 against Portland State, 375 against New Mexico. All those are great. Like, you put up big numbers. Congratulations.
You want your top two in the conference quarterback to do that.
Correct. You want a top 2 conference quarterback to do that, and he was definitely a top 2 conference quarterback last year in the Pac-12.
He was, absolutely.
That's definitely true.
Can't argue that.
I'd venture to say I put him at number 1.
He was top 2 and he wasn't 2. Absolutely.
I'm willing to say that for last season. Look, here's my thing. I think he could be really good. I also think this could be. It feels like every year we have one quarterback who transfers and everyone falls in love with them and doesn't really pan out. I'm kind of smelling that a little bit on the tier, and it's also for the same reasons why we talked about Oklahoma last year. I don't think Oklahoma's a bad program, but they got a brutal draw. The schedule sucks for them. A lot of those games are same games as last year. I think they play Michigan this year as well, and I think Michigan's going to be a lot better. I just think there's going to be some really tough challenges this year. Now, that's not to say that I don't think that the offense can't work. It's not to say that I don't think that Arbuckle's not a great hire. I think Arbuckle's probably going to be a great hire, help turn Oklahoma back into an offensive team. I'm not sure that it quite pans out this year. Didn't throw for 3,000 yards last year. Didn't quite get to that 30 touchdown mark. Like, he wasn't exactly putting up elite numbers. And I want
to look at those running numbers though. Look
the
up
running numbers are
scroll down a little
solid.
bit.
Now I will kind of caveat, those mostly came in like 2 games. Texas Tech and San Jose State. He went 197 and 111 on the ground. And then he didn't clear 100. He didn't clear quick maths. He didn't clear 70 for another, any of those other games. So, look, I think he's a good quarterback. I think he's going to matter. I think he's going to make Oklahoma a lot better. I think they're going to look a lot more competitive on the field. And again, I will totally confess this could be the stupid take of the year. This could be my, super stupid, said the worst thing, I'm an idiot take. I'm totally willing to own that later. I'm kind of putting him in the middle right now. I'm putting him in the same, kind of category as like a Diego Pavia and a Marcel Reed and some of those guys who they have a lot of talent, have a lot of potential. I just don't know that they can do it, 12 games across an SEC schedule.
Yeah. I'll always remember though, Garrett, the sack numbers are included in in those rushing totals, and the tape might tell a different story than just the raw numbers because his offensive line wasn't very good at Washington State.
And look, maybe a little bit of help around him helps him look better too. Like, that could also be part of it. I'm totally fine to acknowledge that. John Mateer for me seems like the biggest variable on the list.
He certainly could be.
He could finish as the best quarterback in the SEC. I'm fine to say that. I also wouldn't be shocked if he gets benched halfway through the season because it just didn't work out. That wouldn't necessarily shock me either.
All right, well, let's go down to our number 1 and talk about going out on a limb here. I was kind of surprised that this ended up as our consensus number 1. I think you and Mitch were probably very high on him, and I probably drug him down just a little bit, but not far enough to drop down to number 2. Let's talk about DJ Lagway at Florida. The best quarterback in the SEC? Apparently, that's what we're going to tell you with our consensus rankings here in late April, early May. Look, I don't hate it. I wasn't ballsy enough to put him at my number 1 quarterback. I have a feeling you guys must have put him in your top 2 or 3 to get him up here, because I think I had him around 6, maybe 5. But if you haven't bought stock in DJ Lagway, you're not out of time, but you are running out of time. What he did to turn around Florida last year, the Gators were dead in the water. Billy Napier was going to get fired any day now. And then DJ Lagway took over and just completely turned that season, maybe completely turned the fortunes of Billy Napier as a coach around. It's a completely different team with him running the show last year. The former 5-star out of Willis, Texas. Many thought that he was going to transfer back home to the Lone Star State around Game 4, Game 5 last year, but he's still going to be running the show in Gainesville. And, man, they pulled off the upsets last year. They beat LSU with him running the show. They knock off Ole Miss in a massive upset that kept the Rebels out of the college football playoff last year. They probably beat Georgia and maybe knock them out of the college football playoff last year if he stays healthy in that game. He got hurt very early on. But this dude just, it's very rare that we see someone just completely turn the fortunes of not just a season, but maybe a program around when he's inserted into a lineup. But that's exactly what DJ Lagway did last year. And the expectations for him, his encore, his sophomore year, are just sky high now.
Yeah. Look, full confession, I put him at number one. I have no issue with that either. I had Florida completely dead to rights. I had them.
Everybody did.
We
Every
had,
single person did. We were waiting for Billy Napier to get fired every day from like week 3 to week 10.
Look, hilarious moment on the podcast last year was joking about Billy Napier maybe not living after that Miami game. Like that was a joke on the podcast he made last year about, Florida fans being so fed up that, Napier wasn't going to keep his life after getting smoked by Miami. By the way, they got smoked by Miami, and I think kind of validated it. I also said last offseason that I wouldn't be shocked if Billy Napier did a little bit of a Hail Mary and went to DJ Lagway because I just thought he was that good, and if he needed to save your job, he's the kind of guy that you can believe in to do it. I think I got a little bit of flack on that take when we made that take on the pod last offseason. I think I've been a little bit vindicated on that one. I really believe in DJ Lagway. I think he is a great quarterback. The numbers, not necessarily going to tell you that, and I'm going to be okay with that. I know that I've been talking about numbers this entire night, and I've been talking about stats and quarterbacks and why, this guy didn't quite. I just got done telling you that Mateer's numbers weren't quite there, and I'm throwing all of that out right now, and I'm going to be a total hypocrite because when you look at DJ Lagway play, he's just got it, right? It's all, my students would be so proud of me. It's all aura with him. It's just the fact that he gets on the field and everyone around him plays better. There's more belief. The crowd cheers a little bit louder. They're just a better team when DJ Lagway is on the field, and I think that's going to end up panning out in their favor. I wouldn't be shocked if Florida turns it around. They had the most impossible schedule. I mean, we were joking about it. This was the most impossible schedule that you could have ever made in college football. You had Miami. Obviously Florida State didn't end up being any good, but they were on the schedule last offseason. A&M was a solid team. Tennessee, Georgia, LSU, Ole Miss. I mean, they played everybody last year.
Plucky UCF that really wanted to upset
UCF
them.
Team. Yeah, like we were all in on, does Florida win 2 games? Does Billy Napier get fired by October? I mean, after that A&M loss, they were, the phone calls on some of their Florida shows. I snuck into some of those and kind of hung out in some of the Florida fan shows. Atrocious. I mean, they were chanting to fire Billy in the stadium. The fan shows were talking about, we can't wait to hire Lane Kiffin. It was a whole thing in Florida. And it turned out that the solution to all of their problems was DJ Lagway. And I think that he's going to take that next step. I think you're going to get a little bit more talent around him and watch what ends up happening there. I'm really excited to see that step for DJ Lagway. I think he's going to get some of the inconsistencies ironed out, and he's going to show you why he's the number one quarterback on our list. He's number one quarterback in my list, and I think he's going to show it to everybody.
All right, I'm excited.
I will go down with the ship on this one. I believe in DJ Lagway.
I'm excited for his sophomore campaign, man. I'm really excited for his sophomore campaign. I'm pulling up the Heisman odds right now. Would you be interested in knowing what your return could be here with a DJ Lagway? Okay,
I would love to know my numbers on DJ Lagway.
It would be, this is a really poor Control F feature here. I don't know why that's not working. Yeah, okay, so he's at plus 1,600 right now. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7th in the country, tied for 6th.
This is not financial advice. But that's nice. That's a nice
tied
number.
For 6th in the country in Heisman odds right now.
That's a pretty nice number.
All right, Garrett, let's move on to the All Coast Conference, the ACC. And this is an interesting one. In the past, we've really struggled to get to 5. I didn't struggle to get to 5 this year. I think there's much more depth in this conference. Helped out a little bit by adding SMU for sure. But the quarterback game in this conference is not what it was just a couple years ago when we were debating on who to put at number 5, and some of the names we were throwing out there were just absolutely gross. Let's start. Number 5 this year is our boy, our pride and joy, the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets senior quarterback, Haynes King. And he had the reputation of a gunslinger a couple years ago after his first year in Atlanta, 16 interceptions. He cut that down to 2 last year. So huge improvement there. He still has a little bit of that gunslinger mentality, but it does feel like he's finally seeing things a little bit better. Maybe has some old habits that have been coached out of him from his time in College Station, but 62 total touchdowns in 2 years at Georgia Tech. That'll play, as they say. And, man, I just love when coaches lean on what their quarterbacks are good at, and the whole Georgia Tech staff just gets it with Haynes. And he's ready to run as many times as he needs to, but he is going to will his team to a lot of victories when it feels like they're out-talented.
Yeah, it's for me, Haynes King was a lot higher on the list. I probably am part of the reason why he made this top 5.
I think he was around number 5 for me, so maybe Mitch isn't high.
Yeah, I totally believe in Haynes King. The passing numbers last year, maybe a little bit deceptive. The yardage output wasn't very high, but there were like 3 or 4 games where he just didn't really pass the football very much because of a little bit of an injury. And they still were able to trot him out there and run the ball effectively and find a way to win games that mattered, including, by the way, in that Miami game. They ended up winning that Miami game, and he only threw the ball 6 times. He was 6 for 6, 32 yards and a touchdown. But then you look at the numbers, he ran the ball 20 times for 93 yards and another touchdown.
That was when they were playing that 2-quarterback system a little bit, right? Well, he was still
a little bit. Yeah,
I think his shoulder was banged up or something. He couldn't.
Yeah,
really
he had a bit of an injury. So my thing is, okay, yeah, he didn't throw the football for a couple of weeks very well. He's still factored into the game plan. He's still found ways to get in there and find ways to help his team win. I think he's an absolute champion. I'm high on Georgia Tech this year. I probably will go down with that ship as well, but I'm totally willing to. Very high on Georgia Tech this year. I just don't know how you can't love the fight that this team shows, and I think it all comes down from Haynes King and their head coach, Brent Key, and being able to just show that toughness. And again, Georgia, I think, is your big indicator there of kind of where this team is. I know they lost that game in 8 overtimes, but Haynes King threw for 72% completions, 303 yards, 110 yards on the ground on 24 carries, and he had 5 total touchdowns. He's an absolute gladiator. I won't hear anything else about it. He's going to will his team across the finish line at times. There's going to be games that they win entirely because of Haynes King. May not be the best passer, may not be the most polished pro prospect. He might be, this year's Riley Leonard, but I'm okay with saying that because Riley Leonard lost the national championship game, and that's totally fine. I'm not projecting Georgia Tech to the Natty, just to be clear, but I think that they will have a fair amount of success behind Haynes King.
Coward. All right. Yeah, we love Haynes King. This is a pro Haynes King podcast, and we will hear no slander of the kid from Longview.
Take your Haynes King hate and get out of here.
Get out of here. That's right. All right. Number 4, I talked about buying stock with DJ Lagway, and it's not completely too late, but we're getting close with DJ Lagway. You want to buy some stock in this next guy. I think you're buying low, and it's going to be a penny stock right now, maybe because people have just forgotten about him, and it's going to hit. I'm talking about Eli Holstein, the redshirt sophomore quarterback for the Pitt Panthers. This is that other class of 23 quarterback from Louisiana. He was overshadowed during recruitment by Arch Manning, originally committed to A&M, went to Bama for a year, sat behind Jalen Milroe and a couple other really talented guys, transferred to Pitt, and if you recall, before he got hurt, Pitt was 7-0 and absolutely rolling. Rolled into Dallas to take on SMU in a top 25 matchup. They dropped that one with Holstein at the helm. Then injuries really started to plague him over the last little quarter of the 24 season. But, man, that 7-0 start, he just kind of has that winning moxie. And I love that about him. You'll turn on a game. He wasn't playing in a lot of high-profile games early on. Obviously, not a lot of people were talking about the Pitt Panthers as a contender in the ACC preseason. But go watch the Cincinnati tape. Go watch the West Virginia tape if you don't believe me that this kid just has an it factor about him that he can put a team on his back and lead a drive when he needs to in a close game. And I love that. when I'm looking at filling out this roster in the ACC, there's not a lot of guys I'd want more than Eli Holstein.
Yeah, and I think the big indicator there is the fact that he was a guy a lot of us maybe expected. I expected him to transfer out. As soon as he had all that success there, I kind of expected a little bit of a transfer and say, like, hey, someone's going to go throw some money at him. I don't know that he's going to be able to resist. And he's stuck there. That's a big deal for Pitt that he's going to stick. Definitely want to buy stock now. I know that the injury kind of derailed a little bit towards the end of the season, but he was looking pretty good up until then. I know he got a little banged up. SMU, maybe not his best game. That's a very good SMU defense that he was playing. But again, it's he's a fun guy. He's a fun passer to watch. Real gunslinger. He's going to put up some big numbers, and I think he's going to probably end up mattering again. I don't know how good Pitt's going to be, but I think he'll keep him in some games.
Yeah, I think we haven't done our full preview yet of Pitt, obviously, and I don't know they're too deep like the back of my hand. I'm sorry about that, Pitt fans, but I know that you're not going to be losing games because of your quarterback. I think you said it. I think he's going to be keeping them in regardless of what he has around him. That's kind of what he was doing last year. And off to that magical start. Not much else I want to say about Eli Holstein. Just buy stock now, thank me later, and you can count your dividends when that penny stock finally hits. Number 3 in the ACC, Garrett, is Kevin Jennings out of SMU. He saved that SMU offense last year. That is not an exaggeration to say that offense was dead in the water. He took over, and it completely revolutionized what they were trying to do on the offensive side of the ball. Took them all the way to the ACC championship. Took them all the way to the college football playoff. I know that game against Penn State was really bad. I trust me, as a SMU stan, I know that game was really difficult to watch, but this dude is a gamer. He led them through a lot of adversity last year. Switching quarterbacks is never an easy thing to do, especially when you thought you had a guy like Preston Stone leading the way. Dude was just dynamite throughout that whole run to the ACC championship. Now, to take the next step, he did throw 11 picks last year. I will caveat that by saying that 6 of them came in 2 games. He threw 3 against Duke in a game that they really shouldn't have won, but they found a way to win on the road in overtime. And then 3, of course, in that college football playoff opening round game at Penn State in the frigid conditions. So excited to see the encore performance for Kevin Jennings, man. I think having a whole offseason with him being the entrenched starting quarterback, it's going to be really fun to see what Rhett Lashley and company can do with him, and just as they're planning to actually scheme with him as a quarterback this year.
Yeah, that's the big thing, is being able to build a team around him and being able to get transfers that are going to work with him, being able to build an offense around him, find plays that work well with him. Really just think that's the big thing for him to take that next step. Kevin Jennings. For me, he was number 2. I had him number 2 on my list. I think that he's a really, really good quarterback. I think that he has another dimension that adds something special to SMU in their offense, and I think that he's going to be able to keep them up top. I think the big thing about it is him being, kind of on the younger side, having as much eligibility as he has, could have SMU in a fun position going forward and kind of keep them on top of the ACC, maybe give them a little bit of staying power. If that's the case, could go down as one of the more important players in that program's history.
Well said. Yeah, that he has 2 more years if he wants it, 2025 and 2026, if he chooses to use all of his eligibility. And yeah, if he can win an ACC title or get back to the playoff in one of those 2 years, then yeah, build that kid a statue outside of Ford Stadium, man. That he would be responsible for.
And the local kid, too, out of the Dallas area.
And the local kid, right? Yeah, that just a great story all around with Kevin Jennings.
Send him to the Cowboys. Why not, right?
They could use him. They could absolutely use him. Number 2, the last 2 guys on our list here also led their teams to the college football playoff last year. Spoiler alert. First one did not do it with his current team, though. We're talking about Carson Beck. Very interesting story. Garrett, I'm interested to see where you had him in your rankings here, because coming into last year, I think he was pretty widely regarded as one of the top 5 quarterbacks, not just in his conference in the SEC, but in all of college football. And then he caught the interception bug and just never could shake it. He was throwing interception after interception last year. I'm really interested. He got a really bad NFL draft grade. A lot of people thought he might go to the NFL draft, but I think he listened to the scouts and said, okay, I think I might be better off taking an NIL check and going somewhere else, trying to refine my craft a little bit, replace the tarnished image I have after this year. And I'm really interested to see if it was a Carson Beck problem or a Mike Bobo offense, in air quotes, problem, because it wasn't an offensive scheme. It was just atrocious. So I think he's good. He might not be first round pick good, but I think he's more than good enough to do some damage in the ACC, to have Miami making some noise. If they can get their defense figured out, then I think they're going to be right there in the college football playoff conversation again. He's got to control the interceptions. He's got to find chemistry with someone like he had with Brock Bowers a couple years ago. But I think this is a good quarterback that had a bad year last year, and I think he's poised for a big bounce back with some talented skill position players around him.
I had him at 3 just to be, transparent. I think he's a very good quarterback. For me, the only thing that stops him from being one of those top quarterbacks is, for me, he's just streaky. Like, he's really good sometimes, and then sometimes you just look at him and you're like, what the heck are you thinking, right? And I wanted to kind of go through the numbers and, try to figure out, like, am I right about that? Like, are my eyes deceiving me? Is he always just really good? And I went through just some of these yardage totals from this last season. 278, 242, 160, 439, 240, 459, 175, 309, 186, 347, 297, 297, 56. It's just up and down. You have no, and then I was like, okay, well, is it just that like they leaned on the run game? Because a couple of those, he only threw like 25 passes. But against Texas, he threw the ball 41 times for 175 yards and 3 touchdowns. Don't know how they won the game with the stat line like that. And obviously against Texas the second time around, he throws for 56. He does get hurt, obviously, at the end of the first half, but wasn't having a very good first half at all in that game. And just to go completely the other direction, are we saying that it was only the great talent? Is it just because he played an awesome defense like Texas? He threw for 160 against Kentucky. I'm not willing to go there with him. He's a little inconsistent. Maybe a change of scenery. Maybe, I don't know how that Georgia locker room is. I'm sure it's probably not the most wholesome of places. Maybe he just needs a little fresh scenery. Yeah, I'm telling you that he's going to Miami for a little bit of wholesomeness.
I was about to say, I wasn't going to call you on it, but
no, it's
continue.
But look, it's the Georgia Bulldogs have a locker room issue. That's obviously true. Look, maybe it's just a bad culture fit for him at Georgia. Maybe he will play better with just a change of scenery. Maybe he just needed to go somewhere where he felt more appreciated. I don't know. Maybe the lights are not quite as bright in Miami as they are in Athens. I don't know what the issue is for him, why it seems like he disappears at times, why it seems like he gets out of his rhythm. But when he is on, he's one of the best in the game. When he is feeling it, he makes throws that'll drop your jaw. And when he ain't feeling it, they'll drop for a different reason. But he's a really good quarterback when he's feeling it. And I think with a little bit more work, maybe a little bit of a change of scenery, that could really help him elevate his game. It wouldn't shock me if he was the best quarterback in the ACC next year. But I just don't think that he quite has that in him with as inconsistent as he is. I think, and this is where it gets really dangerous for some of the Miami fans, this could be one of those quarterbacks that looks really good most of the year, and then you play Syracuse and he just doesn't quite get it done, or you play Georgia Tech and he just doesn't quite get it done. That could be the case, right? I don't know if either of those teams are on the schedule. I was more poking fun at last year, where you have a great quarterback in Cam Ward and your team can't quite get it done at the end of the game. I don't know if it'll be Carson Beck's fault for that, but I have a feeling he might let you down once or twice next season.
Wouldn't surprise me. Yeah, I think that's a really good analysis of how they should feel about that pickup. It's obviously one of the more high-profile pickups in the transfer portal because of how he's led Georgia to so much success. But it's going to be really interesting to see that change of scenery and maybe some easier defenses that he's playing week in and week out. And again, a better offensive scheme. I'm really interested to see what he looks like.
That'll be a big deal for sure.
In a different offensive scheme, and I'm really interested to see if Georgia ever moves on from Mike Bobo. We'll see about that. last on our list, number one on the list, and number one in our hearts, Garrett, another local kid, another Texas kid. Texas kids just dominating this list up and down. We got three of the five in the ACC of all places are Texas kids.
Yeah,
and that's number one, Cade Klubnik at Clemson. Of course, it's going to be Cade Klubnik, the number one quarterback in the ACC. Silenced all the doubters, proved himself to be that dude last year. I really don't have a lot to say about him in this episode because we've said so much good things about him already. He is an incredible quarterback, living up to the hype after he had a slow start to his career, silenced all the doubters last year. And right now, in May, if I had to put money on anybody to win the Heisman, I would put it on Cade Klubnik.
Come on. I'm so happy you said that. For my money, he's the best player in college football next year. I think he's an absolute stud. I have seen the growth. I pulled up his numbers just to kind of show some of this. His freshman season, not as many opportunities, but threw for 697 yards and 2 touchdowns. His sophomore season, throws for just a shade under 3,000 yards and 19 touchdowns. And last season, he threw for 3,600 yards and 36 touchdowns. I don't know what else you can say about the guy. He's getting all of his receivers back, I think, except for one. And I think all the guys that are coming back total something like 22 touchdowns from last season that he's bringing back. Or something like that. They're bringing back a crazy amount of production to kind of help him out. He was almost the epitome of consistency after the Georgia game. After the Georgia game, he just kind of caught fire. You could count on him for, minimum 220, 230. And in a lot of those games, way upwards of that. What can you say? He's an absolute stud. He is that guy. May not be able to rely on the run game quite as much. Phil Maffa, he's Dallas Cowboy now. So not going to be able to maybe rely on him as much as he had in the past. But I don't think that's too big for Cade Klubnik. He's the best quarterback in the country, in my opinion. I think he's going to be the best player in the country, in my opinion. And I think he's going to lead Clemson to a very special season next year.
Well, write in. Let us know what your thoughts are about the quarterback situations in the SEC and ACC. I know you guys agree with us completely. We know what we're talking about.
What could we have gotten wrong?
What could we have possibly gotten wrong? Now, let us know what we got wrong, what we got right. Let us know your rankings, your top 5 in the SEC and ACC. We're going to be back next week talking about the Big 12, the Big 10, and the G5 quarterback rankings. So don't miss that one. Make sure that you're subscribed on the YouTube channel, following along on Twitter and Instagram. And let us know what we're doing. Let us know how we're doing. We got to get through this off season together, and make sure you're telling your friends about the show as well.
Make it one step at a time, everybody. We're going to make it.
Exactly. We're getting closer and closer to preview season. We got some really fun content coming down the pipe, and really excited to break down more than just the quarterback position, these entire rosters really soon, as we're already starting to write. Now the portal's kind of closed and settled down. We can kind of settle in and actually write some previews here pretty soon and not look really silly or waste our time. So for that man over there, Mr. Garrett Turney, for Mitch Mason, I'm Trey Reeves. We'll see you guys next time.
Gracious him. How about that?